Hello, my name is Anjani Segrist, and here is the astrology chart for Nahko. I'm super excited to be reading this chart because it's one of my favorite poets, artists, musicians, singer, songwriter, and also my 5-year-old son is completely infatuated with Nahko and wants to listen to his albums nonstop throughout the days and recites the lyrics, and it's such a beautiful, wonderful thing. So, looking at this chart, I want to mention that this circle here represents the Earth. This little X represents him at the moment of his birth, although we don't have the exact time. We have the day, and this is a map of the sky the moment he was born, or at the day he was born. So, the things that we won't know without the time are the rising sign, the house positions we won't know the houses of the planets, and we also won't know the nodal axis, so the north and the south nodes of the moon, which give us clues about destiny, where he's going in life, and the south node being where he's been, what he's already mastered. So we can still see a lot of information. So let's start off by first giving thanks. So much gratitude for Nahko, for your words, your music, and that big spirit that you bring through. Giving thanks for the ancient ones, our ancestors, all the ways that they have kept track of time and made this information available to us in the form of astrology. And also for all of our ancestors and spirit guides, light beings, every bit of the light that runs through our physical bodies and the dark that runs through our physical bodies. One thing that I really love about Nahko is that he's constantly in his music bringing through that the weaving of spirit and matter and light and dark and in such beautiful ways. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So we start off by looking at the moon to find out what is the lineage. What is the gift that this person brings just by virtue of being born? And what I have here is a Sagittarius moon, which would have been conjunct Uranus. At the day he was born, the moon was with Uranus. So we don't know the specific degrees because the moon does move throughout the day, but I can say with pretty much 99% certainty that Uranus would have been with the moon on this day, giving Nahko a sense of instability because Uranus is a change agent. Whenever Uranus is conjunct somebody's natal moon, we can make the educated guess that this person would have had been imbued with frequent, constant changes throughout life. This means that normally, normal is relative, but thinking of in a day, we know that there's going to be a certain structure to the day. Somebody with Uranus on the with the moon, there would be non-structure, irrationality, shifts in perspective within that one day. So, meaning this is like the anti routine. There is changeability in the lineage. When we think about lineage, often it gives this connotation of roots, bones, blood, the foundation. Foundation is a very Saturn type structure. And Uranus isn't that. Uranus is electric, lightning, changing. So that's an interesting combination to have for the lineage. This would give me the idea that this person has in their, in the soul, what is constant depth, there is woven in change and instability. And there's a magic with Uranus because it has that ability to shift. Okay, so there's a lot more things we could say about the moon, but I want to move on. to keep it interesting and to cover more topics of Nahko's chart. So the next thing I normally would cover is the rising sign, but we don't know what the rising sign is because we don't have the birth time. So let's look now at something that I'm finding interesting is that the South Node, we will know that the South Node was in Scorpio, and we will know that the North Node was in the sign of Taurus. So everybody born within, well, in this same year is Nahko, which is, I have 1986. Everybody born in 1986 is going to have the South Node in the sign of Scorpio. So when I say everybody, it might not be everybody, because if they're born like, somewhere in the cutoff time, it won't be the same. But mostly everybody born in 1986, or we'll say February, March, April 1986, this is going to be true for you. So Scorpio, South Node is representing your lineage, your past, what you've already mastered. This can also be habits, patterns, addictions, a level of mastery that is deeply woven into you. And Scorpio here would say that there is a habit, pattern, addiction to that underworld, to the things that are unseen, the mystical, the shamanic, the depth, and the things that are hidden. So the South Node in Scorpio says that there is roots in the unseen, being attuned to that unseen realm. This would be saying that 1986, these kids were coming out, telling the secrets of the family, and wanting to know the secrets, and having that that level of perception into the unseen mysteries. The thing I wanted to mention is that he's got Pluto on his South Node. Again, Pluto moves very slowly, so I can pretty much say with certainty that people born around this time frame, we're going to have Pluto on the South Node also. So this brings up an extra amount of underworld, the shamanic realm, the underbelly of consciousness is with the South Node. So this is where you've been, where you have gained your mastery. And then the North Node is right directly on the other side of that. This is where you're going, your destiny, your life purpose. And right now, Uranus and Juno are conjunct with that. So this gives me the idea. I mean, it's exact right now. Uranus is exactly the same position as the North Node. And it's speeding up the evolution. Uranus is speeding up where you're going, getting you to your life purpose in the moment. You could just be at the gas station pumping gas, and suddenly you get this drop download of information that changes your whole perspective on life and shifts the assemblage point. So the assemblage point is like your where you're currently vibrating, what you're currently holding as your point of perspective or your point of awareness. And the shifting of that happening suddenly can, open your eyes to an expanded awareness just in an instant. Next, let's look at the inner masculine, because Nahko has Saturn conjunct Mars. Mars represents the way that you direct your will out into the world, and it's also known as your masculine energy, or the way that you embody the God. Mars is in the sign of Sagittarius, saying that the focal point is on expansion, evolution of consciousness, going somewhere. This is like the adventurer, the traveler, the one who is on a quest and a mission to evolve. Saturn being right there within 10 degrees. So Saturn's at 8 of Sagittarius and Mars is at 1. This to me is representing that foundation of the forefathers, the structure of, our nation. That's one level of looking at Saturn, is the foundation for, our collective self. But on the chart, when I'm looking at it for somebody's natal chart, it's more like your own inner structure, your own inner forefathers, and your own inner father. That conjunction can represent, so anytime two planets are close to each other within 10 degrees, it's meant to cause a challenge. It's meant to cause friction so that you can become the connection of Saturn and Mars all at once. It's wanting you to bring those two things together to create alchemy, to create something that hasn't been before. So for Nahko, this is, you could say, creating a challenge with the father, the actual father, so that he is able to become his own inner father. The Saturn also represents authority, your own inner author, the way that you author your life. And so that initial challenge creates the father within to come up and, rising up, bringing up the father that there may have been a challenge with, being able to embody that father as part of the masculine vibe, the way that you're holding your masculine energy, or the way that you are embodying the God. Next, let's look at the inner feminine. So the inner feminine on the chart can represent the way that you attract things to you, the way that you draw things into your life. It can also represent what you spend money on, where you find value and worth, the way you value yourself and your own self-worth. Also, the way that you are receiving pleasure, intimacy, sexuality, beauty. Venus can represent all of those things. Venus for Nahko is in Aquarius. Venus is at 19 degrees and his Mercury is at 18 degrees. And then he's got the sun at 16 degrees. All of this we can know for sure because it would not have moved in that one day. So for sure there is a stellium, 3 planets together, or 3 of the celestial bodies together in the sign of Aquarius. And so looking at the inner feminine, so we can say I also have my Venus in Aquarius, so this is, very relatable for me. When we have Venus in Aquarius, it brings in that sort of out of this world vibe, the cosmic consciousness, having a big picture perspective. And one of the challenges with that, especially for a man with Venus on his chart, would be, first of all, having these big picture perspectives and other people not getting it. And something that I'm seeing in my mind is that, maybe as a child that might have been a struggle, having this big picture perspective and not feeling like other people get it. So it can bring this sense of isolation. Nikola Tesla is my number one example for Aquarian vibe overall because he was light years ahead of his time. And the insights that he was having were correct. They were meaningful, but people didn't get it at that time. And that's sort of the struggle with Venus in Aquarius. Another thing is that this would be what he's attracted to in women, specifically because that's his own inner feminine. So being attracted to Venus in Aquarius could look like, one, loving many women, because Venus in Aquarius has a, that song, I'm Every Woman by Whitney Houston. That's like Venus in Aquarius. It literally has this, expansive, big view of femininity, seeing the woman in all, seeing the goddess in all women. And when you put his Venus next to Mercury, next to the sun, first of all, let's look at Mercury. Mercury is the way that you are perceiving, expressing, the way you take information in, and the way you put information back out. Mercury in Aquarius is going to have such a big cosmic overview, and then putting that next to Venus, having that pleasure of information, the pleasure of seeking information, taking information in, and then constantly, it's like poetry. Just keep on flooding out this perspective that is so big. And then with the sun there, the sun is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So flooding everything with that Aquarius vibe. And that little stellium has a square angle to Pluto. And Pluto having the south node there, being habits, patterns, addictions. Pluto being the underworld, transformation, Shiva, death, rebirth. So this brings a very interesting aspect to his sun, Venus, and Mercury, because Aquarius is the highest. This is really going far, far out into, the cosmos, the biggest. It's like being in the light body, being in the celestial realm, being in the upper worlds, connecting with spirit guides, channeling, being a spirit guide, like being so in tune with that celestial realm, which I'm sure that he is, because his lyrics give me that clue that he is definitely channeling that higher realm. And then Pluto and the south node being at a square angle to that brings us all the way down into the depths of soul, of human soul. So bringing the awareness down into, the Inanna journey, or Isis, going down into the underworld to remember Osiris, picking up all his pieces and putting him back together. The underworld is directly opposite to that upper realm. The underworld is where it's completely dark. There's no flashlights. You got to find your way by feeling and sometimes crawling. It's like earthworms, on your belly, crawling to find your own power, find your own light source that doesn't have batteries or electricity. It's your own personal power. So this connection is really interesting. And as I'm looking at the chart and reading this, it's helping me to make more sense of that beautiful polarity that comes through in his writing. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. Actually, one more thing. So Chiron, one of my favorite things to talk about. Chiron is known as the wounded healer. If you Google that, it's going to say the wounded healer. When I think of Chiron, I think of the alchemist, the one who's is very tantric, like being able to be in the emotions, be in the depth, be in the joy as much as you're in the pain, and integrate. So it's an integration thing. Chiron is at a trine to this stellium of Venus, Mercury, and the Sun in Aquarius. So when there's a trine, it is lending a helping hand or bringing a harmonious connection between those things. So now we have Chiron, the wounded healer or the alchemist, who is sharing energy with, so this would be like Chiron being one of the helpers in all that Aquarius medicine. I will go ahead and stop there Thank you so much for watching the video. Follow my YouTube channel. Please make any comments, ask questions. I love questions. I do have Venus in Aquarius, and as much as I can expand my mind, the better. And your questions help me go mentally to places that I couldn't go on my own. So please feel free to ask your questions. And if you have anybody that you would like me to read their chart, and if I'm interested in doing that, I will. I would love to do that. So please leave a message for me about that. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.